Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Yes, sir.
Bernie Sanders.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
Senator Bernie Sanders.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm great. How you guys doing?
It's not the first time Bernie's been on the Breakfast Club. First time he's been to the studio.
That's right. Last time we were out in what, South Carolina?
Columbia, South Carolina. We went to go see him with Killer Mike. I hosted a town hall for him back in 2016 in Harlem as well, and he called in.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Bernie, 44 out of 45 presidents in this country have been white men. Do you think we need another one?
Well, I think you need this one. Look, we are living in an unprecedented time. We have the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, somebody who is a pathological liar, a fraud, a racist, a sexist, a homophobe,
A racist,
xenophobe.
a con man, a cheat.
Now you're just getting warmed up here, man. Now, this is a bad news guy. And the most important thing that has got to happen is that this dangerous president is defeated. I'm going to do everything I can to defeat him. I look forward to winning the Democratic nomination. And if I don't, I will support anybody else who's out there to defeat him. But this guy cannot win another term.
Why run again? Why run again? Last
Well, I'll
time
tell you
we
why.
ran. Go ahead.
I'll tell you why. We ran in 2016. As you guys know, we were here. And I'm proud of the campaign that we ran. If you think back, and I want you just to think back a few years ago, think about the issues that we ran on. We said that we cannot continue to have a minimum wage in this country of $7.25 an hour, starvation wage, that we're going to fight for a $15 an hour minimum wage. And you know what I was told back then 4 years ago? Think about it. What was I told?
Yes, that was insane.
It was insane. It was crazy. Can't happen.
$15.
Well, since then, 5 states have already passed that. I was told that the United States has got to join every other major country on earth and guarantee health care to all people as a right through a Medicare for All single-payer program. Once again, Bernie, you're crazy. Can't be done. Today, a strong majority of the American people understand that it is insane that we have 30 million people who have no health insurance, more who are underinsured, and that we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Okay? We're making progress on that. Got more than 100 co-sponsors in the House for Medicare for All. We'll have 15 or 16 in the Senate, making progress. I was told that it was crazy to talk about making public colleges and universities tuition-free so that every kid in this country has the right to go to college regardless of his or her income. Well, ain't such a crazy idea now. Cities, states are beginning to move in that direction. So to answer your question, we made progress in 2016 in taking on all of the big money interest in this country, taking on Wall Street and the insurance companies and the drug companies. We made progress. Obviously, we have a long, long way to go, and I want to complete the political revolution that we began.
What will you do differently, though, this time? What will hopefully ensure that you get to that point?
Good point. I have been criticized. My 2016 campaign, remember that campaign? We started like with 4 people. My wife Jane is here. She was one of them. 4 people around our kitchen table. And then the campaign grew, and we took on the whole establishment. We ended up winning 22 states and 13 million votes. This time we're starting from a very different position. We were criticized for being too male. That was a correct criticism. Too white. That was a correct criticism. That is going to change. We'll have a much more diverse campaign. We've already announced our co-chairs. I think many of you know Nina Turner.
Nina Turner. Love Nina Turner.
You should love Nina Turner. Nina Nina worked with me in 2016. We started an organization after the campaign. It's called Our Revolution. And the function of Our Revolution is to get people all over this country to stand up, to fight back, to run for office. Nina has, until just a few days ago, been the leader of Our Revolution. They have 600 chapters all over the country, all right? And they are getting young people to get involved in the political process. Ro Khanna, you may know. Ro is one of the outstanding members of the Congress. Carmen Yolene Cruz, the mayor of San Juan, Puerto Rico, is one of our co-chairs. Ben Cohen of Ben & Jerry's. So we have a diverse group of co-chairs. We're going to be announcing. We have Faz Shakir, who is the first Muslim ever to be the campaign manager.
What about your press secretary? They said he's an illegal immigrant.
She's
an illegal immigrant.
Well, she's protected under DACA right now.
Yeah, we'll have DACA people, but we'll announce some other people pretty soon. It's going to be a diverse campaign staff, and this is a promise. This is maybe my first campaign promise. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. You know, when you look at Trump's cabinet, looks kind of white and kind of old, right?
Kind of.
Absolutely.
Kind of.
It's like a cabinet of mayonnaise.
Okay. Our cabinet will look like America in terms of women and men and racial diversity. That's the promise.
Now, Senator Sanders, a lot of people say you didn't really lose the Democratic nomination. It got stolen from you the first time around. Do you believe it got stolen from you?
Well, let's just say this. Let's just say that the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, was not overly sympathetic to our candidacy. Let's just say that they represented the establishment. We took on the establishment. Let's just say that before the first vote was cast in the 2016 primary election in a caucus in Iowa, my opponent, Secretary Clinton, had 500 superdelegates lined up before the first vote was cast.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. Over the last couple of years, we've worked hard on some of those issues. There will no longer be superdelegates voting on the first ballot at the convention, which means that now delegates will actually represent the people in their states, and there will not be a lot of powerful insiders having undue influence.
So if the fight is fixed, because they look at you, they don't look at you as a real Democrat. So if the fight is fixed and they don't want you as the nominee, you think it could happen again in 2020? You think they will do that to you again?
I'll tell you, look, let's be clear. Last time in 2016, we took on the establishment.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I had a handful of members of the House. I had no governors, no big city mayors, nothing. And we won 22 states. All right, this is where what I understand and the essence of what this campaign is about is not only winning the nomination. Let's say you win the nomination. Do you think you're going to have health care for all? What do you think the insurance companies are going to do? What do you think the drug companies are going to do? You know how much money they have?
Yeah.
They have unlimited sums of money because they make billions and billions of dollars in profit while people can't afford their medicine, while people can't afford to go to the doctor. You got Wall Street a few blocks away from here, right? You got 6 banks that own 54 that have assets equivalent to 54% of the GDP of the United States of America. 6 banks, all right? When we tell the wealthy and the powerful they're going to have to start paying their fair share of taxes, you may have read recently, companies like Amazon made $11 billion in profit. You know how much they paid in taxes?
0.
They get all
You
kinds
got
of
it,
tax
man.
breaks.
No, actually, they got a rebate.
Yeah, they got money back. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
That's crazy.
So how do you take these guys on? The only way you take them on is with a mass movement, grassroots movement. This is what the civil rights movement was about. It's what the labor movement was about. The women's movement was about. The gay movement was about. And I'm very proud. We've been in this campaign now for, 6 or 7 days. We got 1 million people signed up in every state in this country. We're prepared to stand up and fight back.
Now, you mentioned all those things, but, the question is always how. It seems like politicians, they say what everybody wants to hear. Free tuition, lower taxes, legalizing marijuana. But what's the plan? How are we going to have
I don't
free
say
tuition?
lower taxes.
Oh, okay. Well, how are we going to have free tuition?
I'll tell you
How are we
how.
going to do, health care for all?
Good.
How are we going to implement those plans?
Excellent question. Fair enough. Right now, in terms of health care, we are spending almost twice as much per capita as any other major country on earth. Now, when you come and you visit me in Burlington, Vermont, if you go 50 miles north of where I live, you're in Quebec, Canada, okay? They guarantee in Canada health care. Do you know how much it costs? You got, God forbid, somebody comes down with cancer, right? You go through all the surgery, all the chemotherapy. Do you know how much you pay in Canada for all of that?
Free.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's not free. It's paid for
Right.
the same way we pay for public education.
Correct.
You don't come out with a nickel bill. I think that's the right thing to be.
I agree.
Okay. So you asked me how we pay for it. Right now, we are paying twice as much per capita for health care as they do in Canada because they don't have a system which enables the drug companies and the insurance companies to make huge profits. Their system is simpler. There is not all kinds of waste and bureaucracy.
A lot of overcharging here.
A lot of it.
Huge amount. So to answer your question in terms of health care, we're already paying for it. We're paying twice as much as the Canadians. So what the criticism of Bernie Sanders is, he's going to raise your taxes. Well, I may. That's right. But you know what I'm doing? I'm doing away with all of your private health insurance premiums. All right, I don't know how you guys work at where you get your health care from. Somebody is paying for it. Somebody's paying Blue Cross or United Health. All right, that's gone.
We're paying it for ourselves, yeah.
You're paying it for yourself. How much you paying? If you're an average family of 4 in this country, you're paying $28,000 a year, and that cost is going to go up. So we can't afford the present system. That's why we're going to move to Medicare for all. That's how we're going to pay for it. You ask about public colleges and universities. Roughly speaking, it's about $900 billion over a 10-year period. That's a lot of money. Not quite as much as Trump gave in tax breaks to the top 1% and large private corporations. All right, so we're going to tax. We have a speculation tax on Wall Street that would, in fact, pay for that. So to answer your question, all right, it's a fair question. Right now, we have more wealth and income inequality than any major country on earth. Now, I know we don't talk about this very much as a medium. Am I right?
Right.
You can turn on CBS today. Ain't going to be on the CBS. You got 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of America. 46% of all new income goes to the top 1%. Okay? That's the fact. So, yes, you guys said to me about lower. I'm not going to promise I'm going to lower Wall Street's taxes. Quite the contrary. We are going to ask the billionaires and the wealthiest people in this country and the largest corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes.
What about prison reform? Because we've seen the effects of mass incarceration and how that's affected us to this day and still continues to affect us. What do you think about prison reform, and what are we going to do about that?
We're going to do a lot about that. Okay, give me a minute on this one because this is a huge issue. Right now, we have to ask ourselves how it happens that as a nation, we have more people in jail than any other major country on earth. Got 2 million people in jail. We spend $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans, all right? So for a start, first thing, and we're already, as a result of a lot of good work by Black Lives Matter, ACLU, and others, there are now prosecutors and district attorneys who are being elected to office who are saying, my job is not to put more people in jail, it's to reduce the prison population, all right? We're making some progress in that. We have got to invest in children and our kids. We've got to invest in education rather than in more jails and incarceration. Los Angeles, they want to spend billions of dollars on more jails. Wrong. Let's make sure that our kids have jobs and education. Second of all, we have to end private prisons in America. People should not be making money by locking up fellow Americans. I'm proud that during my campaign in 2016, we talked about the insanity of having at federal level, marijuana at the same level, treated the same way as heroin, okay? So we talked about decriminalizing marijuana, legalizing marijuana, and that's beginning to happen around this country. So the goal is to make sure that also when people leave jail, they have jobs, they have decent housing, so they don't come back to jail. But criminal justice reform is a huge issue for me.
Do you feel like you would be righting a wrong because you did sign the 94 crime bill?
I signed it. I voted for it.
You voted for it?
Yeah.
We voted for the 94 crime bill, which started a lot of this mass incarceration.
I voted for that because for a couple of reasons. I mean, you know, one of the things, it's a fair question, but as you know, a lot of bills have a lot of stuff in it. And if I hadn't voted for that, you would be saying to me, how come you voted against the Violence Against Women Act? How come you voted against the effort to deal with some gun safety legislation, which was included in that? That was a ban, as I recall, on banning assault weapons, something that I believed in. So it was, but if you also noticed, at exactly that period, I talked about the dangers of mass incarceration. So it was one of those, and it happens. It may happen tomorrow. You got a bill which has some bad stuff in it, has some good stuff. You make your choice.
So you feel like you'd be righting a wrong?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Look, this is an issue we've got to deal with. Too many lives are being destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of people get criminal records. You know why? Because they have smoked marijuana. They got caught with marijuana. That's insane. And as you know, this is a racial issue in the sense that if I think blacks and whites do marijuana at about equal time. Blacks get arrested a hell of a lot more. And what we also want to do, and some communities are beginning to do this, is expunge the records of people who are arrested for marijuana. I believe in that very strongly.
And I see you talked the other day about your tax returns. Why are people so into your tax returns, and why haven't you released it? I know you said your wife does your taxes, and she hasn't necessarily got to it yet. First of all, haven't you released it yet, and why are people so into your tax returns?
That's a good question, because it's a gotcha kind of question. We will release them. I mean, the answer is they will be. You know, we're a normal family, you know, and I'm a senator, but, you know, and 10 years, somebody said to you, can you tomorrow get your 10 years of tax returns? Not so easy. So we're doing it, and it will come out very soon. And it will not be any great shocks. I don't have any investments in Russia. There is not a Sanders Tower in Moscow that we're working on. Nothing in Saudi Arabia. It'll be mostly a Senate salary and I wrote a book, made some money on the book. You'll see that there.
But I mean, that's why you can't drag your feet on it, because that's what they gave Trump flack for. You know?
But believe me, we ain't Trump, and we'll be on there.
Now, does Bernie Sanders, this is a question that we've been asking of all Democrats, does Bernie Sanders have an agenda for black people?
Absolutely.
What is it?
All right. Look, we start off, as I mentioned, with massive disparity in the general population.
Mm-hmm.
Very few have a lot. Most people have nothing. Then you got another form of disparity, which is a wealth disparity. All right. So right now, you have the white community, the average white family, owning 10 times more wealth than the average black family. You have a health disparity. Infant mortality rates in the black community, I think 2.5 times what they are in the white community. You got an education disparity. We talked about a criminal justice disparity, where African Americans are much more likely to be arrested and put in jail. Those are disparities that have got to be addressed. There is a friend of mine, Jim Clyburn of South Carolina.
Yes, sir.
And Representative Clyburn came up with an idea, which I think we should build on. He called it 10-20-30, which says that you focus federal resources on those communities most in distress. And at the same time, you got to deal with institutional racism. I remember redlining, for example. Mm-hmm. If you're a small business person, I talked to a guy in Milwaukee last year, and he had, it seems to be, a moderately successful business. I said, Bernie, black guy, I'm going to the banks. I can't get a loan. So we got to deal with racism and discrimination within the financial services committee, within the financial services industry. You got payday lenders. My God. Unbelievable. You know what the interest rate for and they're ripping off on the most vulnerable and poorest people. So to answer your question, we do have an agenda. And it's an agenda that we will fight vigorously for.
Yeah, that's why I would like to see what you said about the banks, I would like to see federal government put more support into the black banks.
Absolutely.
I feel like that could help black entrepreneurs.
And not only black banks.
Homeowners as well.
Mm-hmm. And black homeowners, but black business in this sense.
Correct.
In this sense. Unemployment now is, quote unquote, relatively low. But you go to African American communities and the youth unemployment rate is still unbelievably high. And you tell me, please tell me, what happens if you're a kid who drops out of high school who has no money?
You're probably going to turn into a life of crime.
You got it.
Yeah.
What a waste. What a waste. So, we got to invest in those things. We'll invest in housing. A lot of people in the African American community not making a lot of money, spending 50% of their income in housing, childcare.
We got to change that. From the smallest things, from car insurance is more expensive in the African American area.
I know that.
Daycare is more expensive a lot of times in the African American area. But a lot of times we can't get loans. Like, they will not give African American, black people, and minorities loans.
We met with some African American small business people in, I think, Las Vegas, Nevada, actually. And that's exactly what they were saying.
And what about HBCUs?
Absolutely.
Very big for our community.
It is
and
very
support
big.
is very big.
It is very big. They, I don't know the numbers, but as you know, a significant number of African American teachers, academics, professionals come out of the HBCU system, and they do a great job, and they're underfunded. So when I talk about making as I recall, most of the HBCUs are public institutions. Some are not, but we are going to pay a lot of attention to them.
Now, why does it seem like this week you've been kind of dodging the reparations question? Senator Harris and Senator Warren have both kind of spoken out and said that they agree with some form of reparations.
Well, the question is, I'm not dodging the question. The question is, what do we mean by reparations? I mean, it seems to me a lot of people mean a lot of different things. To my mind, it means that we have to deal with the fact that there is enormous disparity between the black community and the white community, and that issue has got to be addressed. And I've indicated to you some of the ways that I think it should be addressed.
Well, I think they mean some type of economic empowerment to the African descendants of slaves.
But what does that mean, economic empowerment? I just talked about the fact that I would do my best to change the banking system to make sure that we end racism, that we pay attention to distressed communities, that people get the loans they need to make the investments they need.
What about straight cash payouts?
No.
How much you want,
You agree
Charlamagne?
with that? Why don't you agree with that?
Well, first of all, you mean just a check to every African American?
Yes.
Well, then there's a check to every Native American who were nearly wiped out when the settlers first came here. I think the way we go forward is to build America together. There are distressed communities, white communities, There are distressed Latino communities. Right now, what you have is a government owned and controlled by big money interests who worries about Wall Street and the drug companies. We're going to change that. And we're going to pay attention to the needs of working families and low-income families in this country in a way that you have never seen.
But this government has also systemically oppressed us in a way that they haven't oppressed other communities. I mean, through slavery, through segregation, now mass incarceration.
And
so I think it should be something done specifically for African Americans.
Well, and all of those issues, all right, we are going to deal with mass incarceration. And we're going to invest, I think at the end of the day, if we end the discrimination that exists in financial services, in healthcare, in education, if we guarantee healthcare to all people, if we, and we're working on a particular program, make sure that every person in this country has a job, because there's enough work to be done dealing with climate change, dealing with our crumbling infrastructure, I would suggest to you that not only the African American community, but every community will be a hell of a lot better off than they are today.
Do you think Democrats really believe in reparations for African Americans, or is it just a good talking point for this campaign cycle?
I don't want to speak for other people.
Mm-hmm.
What about legalizing marijuana, and how can we ensure that African Americans get in on? Because it seems like we're getting kind of blocked out in many ways.
That's a very good question. The answer is
they're saying you need a lot of assets, you need a lot of liquid to invest in.
Even be able to get a license.
Well, this touches on the issue we have been discussing. Number one,
and we were so affected by these marijuana laws.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Okay, so two answers. I believe in the legalization of marijuana. Right now, you have a federal Controlled Substance Act in Washington that says you're caught with heroin, he's caught with marijuana. It's both the same level. That's insane. Okay, so I believe in the legalization of marijuana, which, by the way, will be a major step forward in the struggle for a fairer, a less racist criminal justice system. Number two, your point. There are large corporations, your point, that are going to be making a whole lot of money. Suddenly, 10 years ago, everyone was demonizing marijuana. Mm-hmm. Now these guys are going to make $1 zillion off it. And you're right. Small business people in the African-American community deserve to be part of that process.
Have you ever smoked?
A few times.
Okay.
Didn't do a whole lot for me. My recollection is I nearly coughed my brains out, so it's not my cup of tea.
So you think we should be guaranteed to get a certain percentage of these opportunities?
I don't know what a guarantee looks like, but like in many other areas, your point is well taken, that the corporations are moving in. They're moving in on hemp, okay? This is a problem that we have above and beyond marijuana, in that area after area in this country, you have a small number of corporations who control the action. But the issue of marijuana is particularly sensitive because you got so many African Americans who have been arrested. If my memory is correct, well, I don't know what it is, but it's been disproportionately African American and Latino.
You have to start remembering things, Senator Sanders, because they're always on you about being too old. So you can't just be acting like you're forgetting things all the time.
All right. Well, there's too much to remember.
What do you think about Howard Schultz running, and do you think that's going to affect the Democrats? Some people think it might be very divisive.
I don't know that we need another billionaire to be running for president. Anyone wants to run, they can run. I think his views are certainly very different than mine. Will he? Your question is, will he split the vote and help elect Trump? Don't know. But what can I say?
I was going to ask about that as well. When you ran last time, a lot of the people that followed you and rode with you to the end. Like they would rather not vote than to vote for Hillary.
Yeah, they weren't going from Bernie to Hillary.
They weren't going from Bernie to Hillary, and that's part of the reason why I think that Donald Trump was in. How do we make sure that regardless of what happens, that the Democratic Party is united?
Good question. So let me say what I think I said a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do everything I can to be the Democratic nominee. I think I am the strongest candidate to defeat Trump. I think I can win in states that Secretary Clinton lost: Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, etc. What I pledge to you, and what I've said already, is that if I am not the nominee, I will do everything I can, as I did when Secretary Clinton was the candidate. I knocked my brains out. I resent a little bit some of the criticism that comes of me. Yeah. I ran all over this country. I think we did 35 rallies in, 13, 14 states to get her elected. Now, your point is, well, some Bernie supporters did not vote for Hillary. Yeah. True, but that always happens. Think back in 2008 when Obama ran against Clinton in the primary, okay? A far greater number of people who voted for Clinton ended up voting for John McCain, okay, and did not vote for Obama than was the case in my race. So it always happens, that some people are going to flake off. But I did my best to say we got to do everything we can not to elect this guy, Donald Trump. And getting back to Trump for a moment, I'm thinking back that even before he was president and he was the leader of the anti-birther movement, you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just think about this. Think about trying to, not only is that racist, what trying to do is delegitimize. That's a big deal. To say, oh, Barack Obama, he's not a real president. Constitutionally, he wasn't born in America. Can you imagine that? And now he's turning his divisiveness against the Latino community, against immigrants. The theme of this campaign is to do exactly the opposite of what Trump has tried to do. He has tried to divide us up by the color of our skin, where we were born, our religion. Our job is to bring our people together around an agenda that works for all of us.
Given everything that's happening with everyone around him being investigated, do you think that he could potentially get impeached, and would you like to see that happen?
Well, as a member of the United States Senate, my constitutional responsibility will be to be a judge. That's my job. If the House impeaches and the Senate judges. So, I can't comment on that. I have to listen to the evidence. I think what we will see, presumably pretty quickly, is the Mueller investigation coming to an end. We will find out whether or not there was collusion or whether there are other possible impeachable offenses. But I think, what we saw with this guy, Stephen Cohn, this week, confirming basically everything that all of us know, that Trump is a liar, he is a racist, and he's a fraud. Nothing new.
He's
Michael Cohen.
Michael Cohen, I'm sorry. Right, Michael.
What about all these women that come forward and have these allegations against Trump, having harassed them, pull them in, kiss them, and somehow it just gets brushed over? And I'm not understanding why people don't take that seriously.
Well, you know why?
They said there was a young lady that asked the other day about you having harassment claims in your campaign as well, and you said that you were upset about that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing.
Well, no, it's not about me. It's about my campaign, which had 1,200 employees. Mm-hmm. And I am upset. We put together our campaign quite quickly, and there were problems in it. I don't deny it, and I'm embarrassed by that. That ain't going to happen again. We have now instituted, I think, the strongest protocol to protect women or anybody against sexual harassment. But to answer your question, the problem with dealing with Trump is that every day there is another outrage. It's hard to keep track of it. And the media says, my God, look at what we learned yesterday and then today. So I think that's kind of part of the problem.
Don't you think the Democrats focus too much on being anti-Trump, which they should, but instead of actually telling the American people what they plan to do to make the country better?
Yes.
Because I don't think you can win on just the anti-Trump. I'm not just going to vote for you just because you're the anti-Trump.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
All right. And that's why, you've heard me talk today about an agenda that says if you are billionaires, you ain't going to get any more tax breaks. We're going to demand that you start paying your fair share of tax. Health care is a right. We're going to provide universal child care. We are going to take on the pharmaceutical industry. I mean, that's my agenda. You're right, though. Mm-hmm. You cannot simply be anti-Trump. You got to give the American people a vision of where we want to take this country.
When did you decide that you wanted to run again? When did you know you wanted to throw your hat in the ring?
Well, my wife is 10 feet away from me, and she will confirm that this was the most difficult decision we've ever made. And we anguished over it. We really did. I mean, because when you run for office, you know that especially when you're prepared to take on the big money interest, they're going to go after you. And they are. Already they're going after us. So, we thought about it a whole lot. I'm proud of my state of Vermont. I love representing Vermont. It's a good job. But at the end of the day, with 7 grandchildren, and we ended up concluding that I am the strongest candidate to defeat Trump and to move this country in a very different direction.
Now, we know you stand for equality. We know you stand for justice. But some people feel like with this field of Democrats, with all of these women and these black candidates, some people feel like the best thing for you to do would be to move out of the way. What do you think?
Well, obviously I don't.
Yeah.
Look, I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that. But again, I think that that what we need to do is beat Trump, and I think I am perhaps the strongest candidate to do that. And I would ask people to take a look at what I stand for. Okay? And I think if you look at my life history, it's not only involved in civil rights. It's taken on the drug companies, taking on Wall Street. And I would hope people will look at my record and who I am.
Well, let's talk about that, because Van Jones said that he feels like black people are going to be what determines the next presidents. When we talk about like your record with black people, what examples can you point at to show black people this is what I have done specifically for issues that deal with y'all?
Good question.
Yes.
Okay. I don't talk about this very often, but when I was a student in college, I was a member of a group that no longer, I think, exists, Congress on Racial Equality, CORE. Ring a bell? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, it was one of the prominent civil rights groups in the early 60s. Mm-hmm. And we took on segregated housing owned by the University of Chicago. We held the first sit-in demonstration ever held in the North. Okay, I got arrested for doing that. Okay, in 1963. This does speak to my age, I guess. I was at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, where Dr. King spoke. Okay, so I think I have a long history in civil rights activism. In 1988, I was one of the few white public officials who supported Jesse Jackson for President of the United States, and he ended up winning Vermont. Mm-hmm. I think if you look at my record in terms of civil rights and other areas, you will find that it is consistently a very, very strong record.
Any legislation we can point to?
Well, legislation that benefits African Americans, yeah, we passed, but not specifically. We passed legislation that benefits working people, sure.
If you had to pick a person of color to be your running mate, who would it be?
Too early to say.
Too early?
Yeah. Much too early. But as I mentioned, we're going to have a very diverse campaign staff and a very diverse cabinet.
I want to give you a chance to clear this up because this is a headline. The headline says you hired an illegal immigrant.
Where was this headline?
Secretary. It was on Washington. I think I said it was Washington Examiner. I saw it. Well, yeah, it came out like 15 hours ago.
It was his deputy national press secretary, but she's an undocumented, I guess she's an illegal immigrant, but she's protected by DACA. So right now she's here protected by that, but I guess
so why is
you look like it's the first time you're hearing about this.
Well, look, stick with me. Every day, every minute, there's going to be something else coming out. Yeah. I honestly don't know anything about it, but we have people, certainly, I have somebody in my office who I think is in the DACA program. Mm-hmm. These are people who were raised in this country. They spent their entire life in this country, and we have got to provide them with legal status.
I think she came from Argentina, I believe, when she was like 7. And now she's protected because of DACA. She's a dreamer.
Right. So, if that's supposed to be a criticism of me, well, I don't take it as a criticism. I support the DACA young people, and in fact, we got to fight as hard as we can to get legal status for them.
Yeah, hopefully her speaking out will help people understand that might have prejudices against that, the importance of protecting the dreamers who are in our country.
Absolutely. Why do you think you ran into so many issues in the South in 2016?
Look, again, let's go back. I started off this campaign. You know what I was in 2016? You know what number I was in the polls when we started? I was at 3%. All right. And we ended up winning a strong majority of young people, black and white and Latino and Asian American and Native American. We went a long way. But when you start a campaign and nobody knows who you are, especially in the African American community, I'm from Vermont. Who knew me in South Carolina? But as the campaign progressed, I think we did stronger and stronger.
What's the most painful part of campaigning? Because I feel like they dig up
Probably
everything.
taking these questions.
Well, above and beyond you guys. You mean,
yeah.
Look, I'll tell you, you just did it right now. You just, not that you did it. Every day, they're attacking my wife.
Yeah.
All right, you like to run for office and find the lying about your wife? Or your kids? Or every day there's somebody else? Look, they can't debate on the issues. They can't defend the fact that we have massive income and wealth inequality, or we have racism or sexism. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to rip you apart. And is that painful? Yeah, it's painful. And it's why you asked me, you asked me about running for office. Was it a difficult decision? When did we decide? Yeah, that's one of the things you consider. Yeah. How would you like that? And it's not just me. It's like a game. You go out there and you run. Oh, okay. You know what opposition research? You got an industry in Washington, D.C. who will go through every bloody thing that happened in your life. And they'll lie.
Up dirt, yeah.
They'll dig up dirt and they lie. And is that fun? No, it's not.
And sometimes it's your own colleagues, too, because they're also running for office. And it's very crowded right now, people who are throwing their hat in the ring. And that means people that you have worked with and consider to be friends, they might have to say negative things about you.
Well,
as
listen, I hope, and that's an important point. I would hope that certainly on the Democratic side, because I know, I don't know all of them, but I know certainly the senators. Somebody like Elizabeth Warren has been a personal friend of mine for 20 years. Cory Booker's office is literally down the hallway from mine in the Dirksen office building. So, you know these guys for a long period of time. And I would hope that we will focus on the issues and not get into that kind of ugly personal attacks.
Now, what about when Donald Trump goes at you and, he's a nasty individual?
Calls you crazy, Bernie.
Are you ready to go?
You remind him of Doc Brown off Back to the Future.
Now, did he say that? Or did
No,
you make
he
that up?
didn't
You made that up. See, I knew
You writing his speeches for him?
I knew you made that up.
Don't give him an idea, man.
I knew you made that up. Are you ready to go? Are you going to get back nasty at him? Because, he needs a pop on the hand.
Let's see. We began the program by saying that he is a pathological liar, a fraud, an authoritarian, a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, and a religious bigot.
We need some more.
He's a racist, a con man, and a cheat.
And those are all the compliments.
Those are the compliments. Those are the good things.
Yeah, then we got some bad things to say about
Bad
it. But, let me get back to on the serious note about Trump. Here's a guy who tried to throw 32 million people off of health care. This is a guy whose budget called for massive cuts in Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security. But you know what the ugliest thing about this guy is about? This is the ugliest thing. And this is really unprecedented in my lifetime.
His toupee.
His tan skin, I don't know. His orange skin.
Well, above and beyond the orange hair. Okay. You even take conservative Republicans, like, Bush and his father. Right? These guys did not spend their lives trying to divide the American people up. They were not progressives by any means. But that you go around, what most presidents understand, we have one country, right? Bring people together. You got to have disagreements on healthcare, the economy, the environment, climate change, fine. But you don't go out of your way trying to split this country up. That's disgusting. And that is what he is doing.
Well, Bernie got to go, guys.
Yeah, this is my final question, because I want him to clear this up, because it's a headline. Have you ever gotten a massage at the Orchards of Asia Day Spa in Florida?
That is not a headline.
The answer is no.
Okay.
All right, you
Clear
clear on
it
that
up.
one?
Yeah, I'm just clear.
They said they have some video of you and Robert
You jumped out with
together.
Robert Kraft and a
Bentley,
Maybach. I don't know
a blue
how
Bentley.
true that is. Yeah.
No?
No.
Just messing.
Unequivocally, no.
His wife said no.
Oh, hell no.
And since you asked that, what about legalizing? Because we saw Kamala Harris talking about that, but sex workers.
That's a good question, and I don't have an answer for it. I see two sides to that.
All right. Well, it's Bernie Sanders. We appreciate you for stopping by.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I
Hopefully
enjoyed
we'll
it.
see
And,
you
and
again.
give them your campaign website so if they can donate. You already raised $6 million in 24 hours.
Actually, $10 million in a week. But who's counting?
Flex.
All right. But it's BernieSanders.com. And more, look, the money is important. More important is the grassroots activism we need. So people want to volunteer. You don't have to contribute. If you want to contribute, that's great. All right. But, guys, thank you very much for
Thank you,
allowing me.
sir.
All right. It's Bernie Sanders.
Feel
It's
the
the
burn.
Breakfast Club. Good morning.